My wife and I are 31 and have been married for a year. She wants to start trying to have a kid, but I don't feel like I'm ready yet. I feel bad about it, but it's the truth. When I communicate this to her, she gets so sad and can't understand why.
We have a lot of experience in this exact sort of situation.
You don't want to be with a partner who is jeopardizing their integrity just to make you happy. Masculinity is about purpose-driven living. You are attracted to this component in me. It would be out of integrity for me, although I've committed to wanting children with you, to participate in that in this moment. I hope you understand that, but that is the person that you've signed up to be with. If he said, I never want children ever, then that could be a huge core value difference that is worth talking about whether the relationship should be a relationship. But if it's just a matter of timing, I think it's just about having the container for the relationship to authentically express what is on each other's hearts and minds.
Welcome back to the Medicine Podcast. It's Mimi and my love, Chase, sitting right next to me. we're both in one of those moods that literally just looking at each other makes us laugh. So if we get distracted by laughter...
If we get laughed. We were reflecting on last night. Megan was so beautifully massaging my feet. And earlier this week, I dropped a very, very heavy bench made of wood on my... I don't know what this toe is called. The second toe in from the big one. And just the tip of that toe got smashed. Like we're pretty sure we're dealing with a fracture. Fortunately, it's on the very tip of this toe. Anyway, she's beautifully massaging my heels because they're like just gnarly cracked right now. And just seemingly almost like out of, I don't know, what would you call it? Intuition? You decided to yank on the toe that is broken? Like with just brutal pain running up my foot and into my entire body.
It's muscle memory for me because I rub your feet often. You rub my feet often. It's this nice exchange that we do all the time. And we were watching a show. We were watching The House of Dragon. So I was distracted.
House of the Dragon.
And I was distracted. I was rubbing your heels and I move up and up. And when I usually rub your feet, I pop your toes. I pull on your toes to pop them. It's like this fun game for me.
Yes.
And so I was distracted by the show. And I was just like in like just muscle memory mode. And I yank on his broken toe. And it took him a second to like respond. And he looked at me and he was like, watch that toe, babe. And I immediately felt so bad.
Yeah, I wondered how I didn't scream or shriek, if you will.
Shriek.
But we survived. We learned from it. And there's silver linings and lessons in relationship wisdom to be had in every opportunity. And so
I will say that you handled it very well and you didn't make me feel very bad. I felt really bad, but you could have gotten like angry at me. And
it hurt, but I was kind of like, okay, maybe it's healing because it didn't hurt that bad. Or maybe I'm super strong.
You are super strong.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Chase and Mimi Show, the newer format that we've been trying on for size. And so far, so good. We're getting some great feedback on the way that we structure these episodes. They're a little more fun, but they're also as informative and hopefully as valuable as anything else we've ever done. And so the way that this usually works is we break it into segments. And we start out with some appetizers, if you will, some segments that can be pertaining to maybe health or maybe something funny or informative, maybe some other content creators that are our friends that we get to showcase in these segments before we get to what we call the entree, which is 3 relationship questions that we get from our listeners, from our community. Occasionally we get questions from the interwebs that people send to us, and we pick 3 every episode to go through and give you our perspectives, our answers, our insights before we wrap the show up with a crazy story. And so I guess without further ado, we'll jump into it.
Yeah. First segment that is one of my favorites actually is Shit I've Been On Lately.
Shit I've Been On Lately.
Where we share what we are currently obsessed with. This could be anything. This could be a product, a person, a movie, a show, a sex toy.
Wow. You're right. That could be on the table. I look forward to that episode.
Well, you're my favorite sex toy.
Oh, great. Okay, excellent. We had a really incredible guest here a few months ago on talking all about the power of minerals. We had Kaylee on, who's a functional practitioner. She works with women primarily, but she basically opened the floodgates on magnesium and potassium and calcium and sodium, all things minerals and electrolytes.
She's a women's health registered dietitian.
Great. Okay. Functional health practitioner is usually a pretty nice
it's
blanket term.
A wide umbrella.
But ever since then, I've been really interested in like calcium, magnesium, and potassium specifically. More than just sodium, I put hella salt on anything and everything. And even though she did recommend that I continue to do that, if not maybe even more so, it was these other minerals that I've really wanted to prioritize. And I was just recently looking at like, okay, what are whole food forms that I can, or even just like herbs or some other kind of encapsulated, or I'm a little burnt out on like electrolyte mixes even. Where can I get this outside of just like taking a bunch of, sweetened, weirdly stevia'd electrolyte mixes? And I stumbled upon elm bark, which I should have realized right away was a key ingredient in our Mushy Love Latte.
Hello.
But we included it for its digestive support. It's got fiber called mucilage.
Wow, that sounds nice.
A gel-like fiber that soothes and protects the digestive tract, aids in digestion, and supports gut health. So as we were making this product, this was a really important ingredient because of how supportive it is of digestion. And it tastes delicious. It actually has a graham cracker-like taste to it. So it was a no-brainer. But what I didn't realize is how packed this was with some of these key minerals.
I didn't know that either.
So in addition to the fact that it's got this really supportive fiber for digestion, it's also got some immune properties pertaining to vitamin A and vitamin C, but it is packed with calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And so shit I've been on lately is reminding myself to have at least one, if not two, Mushy Love lattes a day. My favorite way to take it is I mix it with about a quarter scoop of Organifi chocolate or vanilla protein. It adds a little extra froth, and then just mix it with hot water. And I have that first thing in the morning. Or if I have a second one during the day, I'll put it in a vanilla protein smoothie, and it's just freaking delicious. And so we're always talking about the benefits of tremella, the benefits of chaga mushroom, as it is a mushroom product. But elm bark, kind of this underrated ingredient that we primarily put in for digestive support and
taste.
And taste, but it also has these really amazing mineral components as well.
Yeah.
And so thought that was quite the synchronicity.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't know that either, and it's good to know because I am also always looking for ways to support minerals. I wish I would have known about minerals and electrolytes way earlier on in my, of course I knew about them. Of course I knew about magnesium, I knew about potassium, but like, I feel like we in general get bombarded with like hydrate from a very young age. It's like why people are drinking Gatorade and Powerade and things like this. And so it's like, oh yeah, okay, replenish, hydrate, drink a lot of water. My parents always were reminding me to drink a lot of water and stuff, and I did. But what they don't talk about is like the more water you drink, especially if it's like bottled water and not mineralized and all of these things, if it's just regular old tap water or bottled, you are actually diluting your minerals if you're not replacing those minerals. So just hydrating on, bottom of the barrel water is not going to do much for your health. And I wish I would have known about the power of replenishing with electrolytes and minerals so much earlier on, or just realized like the weight of it before, my early 30s.
I think that we all grow up thinking that we need to stay hydrated, in like the mechanism is we either dry out or we stay hydrated. And so we need to drink so that we don't like dry out. And it's that simple. It's not. There's a lot more to it. And the charge component, the electrical component of the body, and having these electrolytes, these minerals that are super supportive of the recharging of the body, in addition to just like becoming less dry, to me makes a little more sense. And I almost wonder if the reframing of that relationship to drinking and consuming liquid in the form of not just water to hydrate, but also charge, could maybe support a little bit different of a mechanism as it pertains to how we look to, quote unquote, rehydrate.
Yeah. And it's not just about hydration for like performance or whatever. It's like we have to have minerals in order to support the production of hormones,
Yeah, it's communication.
Progesterone.
Yeah, right.
and testosterone and things like that. It's like, man, point to any like shortcoming or issue in the body, and it's going to be pretty closely tied to your mineral stores and how your minerals and electrolytes are functioning in your body and where those levels are at. So, yeah, we've been talking about minerals, I feel like, a ton. And if this is something that you have not yet addressed or looked at, work with someone like Kaylee McDevitt. She is who we talked about before. She's been on the show. Work with her team and get a hair tissue mineral analysis, or someone like her and get a hair tissue mineral analysis. Look at where your minerals are at, how you can optimize, and that's a really, really good place to start, honestly. And it's not an expensive test at all. And a lot of things, like I said, go back to, if you go upstream, it is affected by minerals. So
for sure.
In this little cup, I have my favorite way to enjoy mushy love, which is in combination with cold milk. We drink raw cow's milk, and I put it about 8 ounces of milk in with about a scoop and a half of mushy love. That combination, like the cold version of mushy love, tastes like liquid graham crackers. Like, I shit you not. If you don't know yet what mushy love is, it's our mushroom elixir with 500 milligrams of chaga, which is amazing for gut support. They call it the king of mushrooms. And then 500 milligrams as well of tremella mushroom, which is the beauty mushroom. And she is most known for holding 500 times her weight in water. The more hydrated we are, the more plump and dewy and fresh and young our skin looks.
Plump and dewy.
For Mushy Love, go to getmushylove.com and you can use the code MEDICINE for a nice little discount that we only give to our medicine podcast listeners. Yeah, all right. Well, shit I've been on lately. I actually have 2, so surprise.
2 shits?
2 shits I've been on lately. The first is kind of a fun one. We are suckers, y'all. We love stand-up comedy. We are suckers for stand-up comedy. We watch all different types of comedy. But one type of comedy that I've been on lately meaning like the last year, is the Kill Tony show. It's just like, oh my God, it always sounds good to watch to me. It is hilarious. We've had enough of like the really intense, super dramatic, very dark, deep, cerebral shows probably to last us for a lifetime. And so watching some stand-up comedy, I think, is just like, it's just fun, and we need more laughter and fun. So the Kill Tony show, if you've never watched it, it's the biggest live podcast in the world with literally like millions of streams every single week. It's on every Monday, I think. And so Tony Hinchcliffe, he's a stand-up comedian. He is known for being like the world's best roaster, probably right underneath Jeff Ross. I always say Ross. Is it Ross?
Mm-hmm.
Roth.
Yep. Jeff Ross.
Yeah. Ross. Okay. And so they're like, neck and neck. So he's this roaster character, and he brings comedians on like Joe Rogan or Shane Gillis or really anyone, any notable or celebrity, really. He can bring anyone on, and they have like a panel, and then they have a live audience, and these audience members can volunteer to put their name in a hat that can get pulled to then do 1 minute of stand-up comedy, like basically shooting their shot at stand-up comedy. Some people this is their first time. Some people have been doing it for 10 years and they're just like waiting for their big break. And so they get up and do their 1 minute. Some of them are really funny. Most of them are really bad. And then the professional comedians on the stage, Tony and his guests, then basically can provide comedic relief, commentary. They can even give them tips if they want to. And then they have this like dialogue, this interview with this person who's now on stage for a few minutes. And it is so laugh out loud, pee your pants funny. If you like stand-up comedy and you can handle like some darkness, because
it's like beyond
brutal.
R rating.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
well
brutal.
beyond. Yeah,
there's no filters. There's
not for the kids.
Like, no, definitely not. And if you are like easily offendable,
yeah,
probably don't want to watch it. But if you're easily offendable, you're probably not listening to our show. So definitely check out Kill Tony. It's on YouTube. It's absolutely hilarious. They recently had Shane Gillis as Donald Trump and Adam Ray as Joe Biden on there, and they were in character the entire 2.5 hours. I was like crying laughing. It's absolutely freaking hilarious. So definitely, if you watch one episode, watch that one.
Great. Yeah.
So that's one thing I've been on. And then the other shit I've been on lately is we are up here in the beautiful northern panhandle of Idaho. And it has been so freaking hot, like in the hundreds, and super dry. And my skin is it's parched if I don't take care of it. And so one thing that has been nourishing my skin these last few weeks is the Be Here Farm serums and oils. You guys know I've talked about ClearStem 100 times on this podcast. I've been using ClearStem for years, but they don't have any oils. And I love facial oils. Like I bathe in them. It feels so good. My skin is naturally pretty dry, and so it just soaks it up like a sponge. But the founder of Be Here Farm and Nature, Jared Picard, who we're going to have on the podcast very soon, he is one of one. He's so intentional about the products that he creates. And he owns a biodynamic farm. And he basically sources all of the ingredients for his skincare products that he provides to hotels and spas all over the world. And he also now sells them to, direct to consumer. He's so intentional with the ingredients that he uses for these products. They're all coming straight from his farm, and he's working with them using his own techniques and things like that. And he's going to come on the podcast and talk about what makes his products so different. But they are absolutely incredible. Though my favorite product is the Summer Solstice Serum, which is an oil. I put it on morning and night. Just a couple drops goes a long way. The smell is just heavenly, and it really soaks into the skin well. It doesn't just like stay on top. It
doesn't
really
leave
nourishes.
your face greasy.
No.
Which is usually my complaint with real oils. And then with lotions, I don't like the smell. I don't like smell on my face or on my fingertips. And the oil smells pretty good, but then it goes away. The skin seems like it drinks it up.
Yeah, it does. So definitely check out Be Here Farm and Nature, and check out our episode in a few weeks. We're going to have him on. So that'll be a really fun episode to have. That's the shit I've been on lately.
I love that. Yeah, Be Here Farm. I'm really excited for the collaboration with Jared, not only because he's one of our best buddies, but his products are world class. And I don't really care about skincare products, and I'm really blown away by his stuff. So excited to open that opportunity up to the listeners. Moving on to what we call our clip of the week, where we get to showcase another content creator. A lot of times these are people that we know and love. And in this case, a mentor, a friend, someone that we've had on the podcast, one of my favorite conversations that we've had ever. Mr. John Wineland had a absolutely dynamite clip on his Instagram that he called Magnetizing Your Partner versus Calling One In. So we will take a look.
Where is the person that is going to finally make me feel safe and secure that I can walk into the sunset with? Where is the person who's going to finally give me the things that have been lacking in all my other relationships back down to my parents? First and foremost, let's just start with two questions. What do I have to give? What would make me valuable to the person that I want to attract? If we are coming from a place of lack, we are also going to attract somebody who feels lack. Not only only are we attracting someone who's vibing, let's say, at the same level, but we're also going to attract that they're wanting the reciprocal of what we want. That is why, as I break down this process, you'll see it's so important to really take an inventory and really take stock of what it is that you are bringing to the game.
So that was a clip from John's pretty new podcast called The Embodied Relationship Experience. I think he's only like 8 or 9 episodes in. John was a mentor to us. His teachings were really, really pivotal in our reconciliation and the foundation for what we call part 2 of our relationship. And he's really speaking on something that is a category of spiritual relationship work that drives me freaking nuts because it's the how to manifest the partner of your dreams type of thing. And no offense, ladies, but this is one that just the girls out there just drink up. They're just like so thirsty for the vision board of what their perfect like Ken doll husband is going to look like. And he's going to be so fucking spiritual and perfect. And it drives me nuts because it's like really, really fantastical. And I think it's rooted in a good idea, but it just gets really, really commercialized and people are selling courses on how to manifest the person of your dreams and all that kind of stuff. And what John is really saying here is before you step into that groomed run that this conscious relationship space is suggesting you should, walk into, which is manifest the partner that you so desire by emitting the frequency that you want to have come to you in the form of, your significant other. He's saying before you step into that, really think and ask 2 crucial questions. What do I have to give? What makes me valuable to the person that I want to attract? I do not think that most of us are thinking about what makes me valuable to the person that I want to attract. We're thinking about what's going to make them valuable to me. And the funny thing is like the whole theory around this, your vibe attracts your tribe idea, is that you have to emit the vibration, the frequency of that with which you hope to manifest in the form of your partner, which really practically is going to then include a component of what am I willing to give? What am I willing to consider the valuable contribution to the relationship? And I really love how he just kind of dunks on this space in the most beautiful John Wineland way by asking really practical yet super conscious and seemingly quote unquote spiritual components to this conscious relationship space.
Yeah, I love how he puts this too. It doesn't, what makes you valuable may not be like a material something. It may not be, well, I have a big house or like I have a good car or I make a lot of money. Like I know because I know John, he's talking about like you, like the inner parts of you, not necessarily. It could include material too. Like, yeah, I have a really stable life and that could provide safety and stability for a potential partner and a future potential family. Of course, that can be included. But I love how he really puts it back on the person rather than them searching for something out there that is going to somehow make their life better. He's saying, focus here first. Like, focus on and really get honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, don't bullshit yourself on how amazing you are. I mean, yeah, like be honest with yourself and lean into the things that are unique about you and special and all of these things. But also like if you've been focusing too much on, is the other person good enough for me or whatever, like it might be time to turn the tables a little bit and really get honest with like, am I the person who I think I will be attracted to would be attracted to me?
I love that he says take inventory. So do a little quick Google search that says, characteristics in the perfect man or whatever, or the perfect wife or the perfect woman. And you're going to see all of these different characteristics: honesty, integrity, accountability, safety, leadership oriented, vulnerability. But the reframe that John is asking you to do is to then evaluate yourself for those characteristics and what you would be willing to give to the relationship. I mean, I'm even thinking of it as we're just talking about it right now. Not that I'm trying to manifest a relationship. I have a pretty good one.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. But what I think of is like, oh, I'm totally trustworthy. I'm absolutely safe. I'm very driven. But then you get into some of these other realms and it's like, if there was a reality where we weren't together, I'd be like, ooh, vulnerability? I don't know if I'd want to be contributing, gifting my vulnerability to this person that I don't know.
Yeah.
And if I was to be a single person manifesting a partner, I would have this little like gap in the vulnerability thing, which is going to then attract a partner who is not going to be interested in being vulnerable, perhaps. And so it is a really nice little thought exercise.
Or someone that doesn't necessarily want to go deep with you.
Right.
And it's like, they're fine just being superficial.
Right.
And that's clearly not someone that you would be willing to spend your life with.
And if you've been hurt in the past, and you're going through this manifestation practice of the perfect partner, you have to be willing to actually give to this perfect partner, perfect in air quotes, but you have to be willing to like provide the thing that you think has been stolen in the past, which is maybe, vulnerability or depth or, something a little bit closer to the wound.
Yeah, and that's not easy. This is why relationship work is never over, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's the ultimate, in my opinion. This is coming from someone who has a life path card of the Lovers, number 6.
Yes.
In tarot, and Chase does as well. But so I see everything through the lens of relationship. And I know that I have that like bias. But I believe that deep relationship, whether it's with your romantic partner or, family members, friends, certainly, but absolutely your romantic partnership is, I think, the ultimate spiritual teacher. If you're willing to go there.
Yeah.
If you're willing to be, a forever student when it comes to love.
Totally.
Yeah. Great quote, John. Thank you for your service. And I'm like shocked that it's taken him this long to start a podcast.
Yeah. I'd love to get him back on ours. We're going to hit up his team as they've given us permission to showcase his content here. I'm going to try to get him back on the show and maybe we can have another jam sesh with Johnny Dubs.
Honestly, like I don't think you and I would be together if it wasn't for his work.
Right.
Because he was like the first person to like introduce us to this like deeper way of being in relationship that didn't feel super fluffy. It felt like this is real.
Yep.
And it's basically using your relationship as spiritual growth.
Yep. Check out his podcast. His book From the Core is excellent. And he's got years, decade plus of videos on YouTube that you can really dive into if you're new to John Wineland.
He has lots of content.
Last appetizer before the entree is something I just figured out. I was today years old when and actually this one for me, I've been using for the last couple months, and it is leveraging ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, one, you should be, but two, there is a host of education around it's more along the lines of the prompts and the questions by which you choose to ask ChatGPT that will dictate the kind of quality that you'll get in return in the form of its answers. And so most of the ChatGPT like education is around make sure you're asking the right prompt. And some of them are kind of like really complex and the prompts are like overly complicated. And you know what I kind of found out the last month or two is that this little phrase breaks my questions down and or breaks my answers down in a way that is very digestible to me. And I've learned quite a bit. And that's to add to the end of your question or integrate it into your question, the phrase, like you had to explain it to a 5th grader using plenty of metaphors. And so what I've been doing is I work as a financial professional. So Oftentimes I'm looking at contracts, legal documents, tax law, accounting code, and I see things that come across my plate that are like foreign language to me. And I have to use what used to be researching the actual code, which is just boring as all hell. And I've been grateful to have ChatGPT as an advocate now that can kind of like source that various tax, accounting, and legal code and spit it out in a way that I can digest. But sometimes the answers are still like as boring as reading the tax code. It's basically just a control find mechanism. So what I've been doing is I've been adding this little component that says, like you had to explain it to a fifth grader using plenty of metaphors.
Yeah, that's genius.
And I'm able to understand it so much better. And so I wanted to showcase this as an example of something that may be more consistent with our show. And so I'm using the example, and I will read you the response that ChatGPT gives me.
All right, I can't wait.
For something health related. And so I ask Chat, hey Chat, thank you for what you're doing for me. Can you explain how metabolism works in the human body like you had to explain it to a fifth grader using plenty of metaphors?
That's great.
And here's what Chat had to say.
Do you really say thank you for what
I
you're
try
doing?
to thank Chat.
Yeah.
Because when Chat turns into, a robot or a sentient being, I wanted to have the data that I was very polite to it.
Right, totally. And I do that too. I always say please. I always say thank you after they give it to me. I'm never rude.
Right. So Chat replies to my question. Sure. Let's imagine your body is like a big bustling city. In this city, there are many factories, power plants, and delivery trucks that work together to keep everything running smoothly. This whole system is called metabolism. And here's how it works. 1, food is fuel, the grocery store. Think of the food you eat as groceries that come into the city. These groceries are delivered to the city's main grocery store, your stomach. Here, they're sorted out into different types of fuel the body can use. 2, breaking down food, the kitchens. Once the groceries are in the store, they need to be prepared and cooked before they can be used. This happens in kitchens all over the city, your digestive system. The food is broken down into smaller pieces. Carbohydrates become sugars, proteins become amino acids, fats become fatty acids. 3, transporting fuel, the delivery trucks. After the food is broken down, the delivery trucks, your bloodstream, pick up these smaller pieces and deliver them to the factories and the power plants, your cells, all around the city. 4, energy production, the power plants. In the cells, there are tiny power plants called mitochondria. These power plants take the delivered fuel and turn it into energy. This energy is like electricity that powers everything in the city. From the streetlights to the computers, this process is called cellular respiration. 5, using energy, the factories. The factories, which are different parts of your body, use this energy to do all sorts of important things. For example, muscle factories use the energy to move and exercise. Brain factories use the energy to think and problem solve. The heart factory uses energy to pump blood all throughout your body. 6, waste management, the garbage trucks. Just like any busy city, there's a waste that needs to be taken out. The garbage trucks, your excretory system, wow, that's fun, collect waste products from the factories and power plants and get rid of them through the process like sweating, peeing, breathing, and carbon dioxide. Storage, the warehouses. Sometimes the city gets more groceries than it needs right away. When this happens, the extra food is stored in warehouses, your liver and fat cells. This stored food can be used later when the city needs more energy. And then it goes on to do a summary of everything that it talks about.
That's so good.
How good is that?
I mean, you could make that into like a children's book on teaching about the human body.
Exactly.
Like you put like 5 good explanations of the human body into, you could do that with like the reproductive system and the neural network and things like that. Like, wow.
Well, I've also been using this, so not just for work. Honestly, I'm a freaking accountant and I have a lot of knowledge to begin with, so I'm not doing everything through ChatGPT for work. But I've actually been doing it on health podcasts like Andrew Huberman when it's super, super sciencey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is that word? What is that? Or what is that system they're talking about?
Yeah.
And I go do the same thing. Like, please explain it to me like a 5th grader using plenty of metaphors. If you guys have listened to the podcast for a while, you know I use metaphors a lot to try to educate or make sense of things.
That's how it sinks in for you.
And so I always ask them, it, chat, whatever, to use metaphors. And so, little hack. something I just figured out, and I encourage anybody and everybody, obviously pivot it to maybe you want to be talked to like your kindergartner, or maybe you want to be talked to like a, freshman in college, your choice.
Yeah, I love that. Good something you just figured out, babe.
All right, moving into the entree, baby. The 3 relationship questions. All 3 of these are from our community members, listeners, and or viewers of the show. And thank you for everybody who submits these questions. We'll kick it off to our first one.
Yeah, I've kept all of these anonymous, FYI. Okay, so first question. I need some help handling finances. As a woman, I don't want to feel like I'm always being taken care of, but it's hard when I always pay more and I feel stuck in a masculine role and don't know how to get out of it. So it sounds like she doesn't necessarily want to feel like a burden to her partner, that they have to completely provide for her, which I think is normal, but it sounds like it's swung to one extreme, like end of the spectrum, where now she has kind of gotten into the habit of paying for everything and doesn't really know how to either change herself or have the conversation with her partner about maybe stepping out of the masculine providing role all the time and into a more feminine, surrendering, receiving role is what it sounds like. And we don't know if she's in a dating relationship or married, so we gotta make some assumptions here.
Let's assume that she's asking how to get out of this stuck position in the masculine role that she is articulating. The first thing that comes to mind for me is feeling like you are being taken care of is a healthy component to a deep relationship. Mm-hmm. Feeling like arm candy or feeling like you are incompetent is different.
Or entitled.
Yeah, or entitled. And so I understand the sensitivity of not wanting to feel like you have to be taken care of in order to be like competent in life. But I feel like the risk with this approach is not unlike when someone doesn't want to get their heart broken, so they refuse to be vulnerable or get close to someone in any relationship. And it's kind of like, well, if you want a deep, intimate relationship, you're going to have to be vulnerable. That doesn't necessarily mean in this case that she needs to stop paying for things or that she needs to start letting her partner or boyfriend pay for everything. Mm-hmm. The literal money component to quote unquote I've said quote unquote like 7 times in this episode. The literal money component of being taken care of is too narrow to be able to support how critical being taken care of or feeling as if you're being taken care of in a relationship actually is. Mm-hmm. And so I think she's putting too much stock and too much weight into the money piece of the relationship when the thing behind the thing really has to do with why is it so scary for you to feel like you are being taken care of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so my question for her would be, sure, we can break down some specifics on how you can maybe have a conversation with your partner about sharing the responsibility of paying for things like dinner and rent and groceries and all that. And that's totally fine. But that is dealing with a downstream issue when I think the upstream theme of being taken care of is where the sensitivity is at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this could come from, a childhood situation where maybe she was told by her mom, like, you got to take care of yourself. Maybe her mom's husband or boyfriend or whatever, like, left and she had to she had a single working mom, and she learned that like you can't trust men. You got to take care of yourself. And, I got to always be able to lean on myself. I got to make my own money. I got to be independent. I can't rely on men to provide for me.
Well, and I think, it's kind of like the 1950s housewife thing where most women, unfortunately, were left to household responsibilities, and they, get a couple kids, and all of a sudden they haven't worked in 4 or 5 years, and maybe they're not even, in some cases, really extreme cases, not even driving the car, and they're kind of turning into this like 50s housewife gone crazy and don't have a resume and feel incompetent in life. And so I think there's a sensitivity around not wanting to dull one's world skills such that they have to be cornered into one place in life, whether that be motherhood or whether that be just like this sort of like stay-at-home wife thing that I understand and appreciate. But there is I think a deeper question around what do you really want in the relationship? Because right now it's like you're frustrated in the masculine role, but part of a deep, intimate relationship is having some level of fluidity as it pertains to those masculine and feminine dynamics. And if you are really choosing or interested in more feminine components to your relationship dynamic, surrender is going to be a pretty big piece to it. Receiving is going to be a pretty big piece to being feminine.
I would guess that like this doesn't just show up in her finances. I'm guessing that it probably shows up in the bedroom. I'm guessing that it might show up in day-to-day things where she feels like she has to lead the relationship in different aspects. One thing that I will say is if you are in obviously she's in a relationship. If you're wanting to make these changes to how you show up, I would heavily encourage you to not just change things out of the blue and expect your partner to change too. If you've sort of gotten into a rut or a pattern of you always pay for this, et cetera, don't put your partner through a test that he doesn't know that he's taking.
Yes.
If you just stop paying for things and you're like, well, he's going to figure it out. He's got to figure it out. And if he doesn't figure it out, then he's not the one for me or whatever. We all get into patterns. And if this is something that's really important to you, which it sounds like it is, then he deserves to have a sit down conversation, invite him into a conversation, invite him into a check-in. We have a whole episode on check-ins, episode 113, where we go through the structure of how to have healthy dialogue with your partner and how to set that container such that it's productive and respectful and you both feel like you've been able to share in a meaningful way such that you don't become resentful towards each other because, again, you're putting your partner through a test they don't know they're taking. That's completely unfair. So that would be my little tying this in a bow is like, talk to your partner about it. Let them know like, hey, I've noticed that this pattern is coming up. Hopefully, he's a good man and he also wants to contribute. And I would also say that if you are in a dating relationship, not married, which I would guess because if they're married, then everything's kind of theirs and it doesn't really matter who pays because it's kind of both of your money anyways, right? So if this is a dating scenario and you're not having conversation around your values around money, that's important to like step one, star, because these things are never going to go away. They're only going to amplify if you end up with this person and you don't have at least similar values around money and how you contribute and things like that. That is definitely step one.
Yeah, great point. Money is a really critical component to relationship success. So, and I'm going to speak to the ladies who have been in a more masculine role. I don't mean a man role. I mean a masculine role in the form of breadwinning. And they've been doing it for a while. And they're wearing other masculine roles in their relationship. It might be very hard to quickly transition some of those roles and responsibilities to your longtime partner who is a male and has been in the more feminine aspect of the relationship dynamic. my recommendation would be to start small and maybe not with finances right away. And so if you are in one of these relationships where you are wearing the pants, that's an old term, but it's legit. It might be worth having a conversation with your significant other about sharing some of these responsibilities and starting small. It can be as simple as, I would like you to start participating in some structure and discipline with our children. I would like you to start participating in where we use our money, how and what our goals and dreams are as it pertains to our income. Mm-hmm. Maybe don't hand them the bank account yet if you've been managing that for the last 5 to 10 years, but start enrolling them in that. Mm-hmm. As time progresses and the muscle is built to some degree of this poor guy's dimmed masculinity, then you can start maybe even sharing some of those. But my concern would be if you just hand that over to your partner that you've stifled through over masculine expression, that he will be failing almost not to his fault, right? Like he's had a atrophied muscle.
Yeah. And new patterns require time and patience, and for ourselves and our partners. So just have some empathy and patience and let us know how it goes. We would love to hear back from you.
Question 2, on the verge of separation. My husband has a sports gambling addiction and is in denial about it, and he is also a narcissist. I've experienced so many emotional, abusive situations in our short 1.5 years of marriage, and I'm having a really hard time walking away, but I feel it is the actual time. Hoped things would get better, but they just aren't. What do I do?
Yeah, this is a really tough one. We have to assume that if we're going to answer the question, we have to assume that it's a legit addiction and not just like something he likes to do with his buddies once in a while from time to time. And she's just doesn't like it. Addictions are really, really, really tough for everyone involved because the partner can see it so easily. And the person who has the addiction might believe that they could quit anytime. And it's not really a problem when that's just not reality. It's like they're living in two different realities. And it sounds like they've been married for 1.5 years and have been in a lot of some rocky situations. And I can see how you would want to resort to just giving your partner an ultimatum, like stop gambling or else I'm gone, which might be fair, honestly. I think she says, I'm having a hard time walking away, but I feel it is time. I hope things would get better, but they aren't. This is really tough because I believe that if two people want to make the relationship work, it can, but it has to involve two people who value the relationship and the health of the relationship more than any like material things.
Yeah.
So if that's not happening and they are drifting apart, having issues, not connecting, dysfunction all over the place, then she gets to decide for herself that this is not the person for her because clearly he's willing to put his addiction over the health of their relationship. And addiction is so tough because there's some people that would say addiction is a disease. It's not a choice. And with that, it's like, then how do some people get clean and others don't? Like if you have an addiction, there is some willpower. There is some, hey, I want to get healthy. I want to work on this. I'm going to therapy. I'm going to do this. If he's not making any of those steps, then yeah, you do get to choose if this is the path that you want to walk down or not. And it sounds like it's not. So if this was my sister, I would say, if you've genuinely put yourself out there in a loving way and laid it out for him, like, I love you so much. I want to build a life with you. There is this thing that's getting in the way of the health of our relationship. And I'm setting a boundary for us, for me, for myself, that I want to be with someone that really wants to put their energy and time into the health of our relationship above material things. And if that is not what's happening in our relationship, I am going to leave. I'm going to, separate or whatever. Like, I'm going to take the next step to separate.
I would ask her, what's it going to take for the relationship to work itself out? Okay, he's got to get clean. He's got to be consistently clean, and he has to be more financially responsible and show love and adoration for me, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, great. Spell it out. That is now the ultimatum. I don't think an ultimatum is inappropriate in this scenario at all. Mm-hmm. I would tell this person to immediately get some support, either legally or financially, to make sure that your money is safe from the potential gambling addiction. If this person has any sort of, violent or abusive tendencies, that you also have some support system in place as it pertains to your own safety. And then once those are in place, to have this conversation around, this is exactly what it will take for this relationship to continue. And it's going to include your sobriety from gambling and maybe some of these other emotional components. And even then, I'm also going to need time and then consistency. So this is not overnight. This is like 6 to 12 months of perfect execution. And then we can continue to entertain the idea of being together. Otherwise, divorce, separation. Mm-hmm. That's what I tell this person.
Yeah. Gambling addiction is hard because different from other addictions, say someone has an exercise addiction, say someone has even like an alcohol addiction or cannabis addiction, whatever it is. Gambling addiction is so hard because it directly affects the well-being of the other person materially, because if you're married and you're gambling your joint money, then that also affects your partner's financial freedom and status moving currently, but then also moving forward. So she is totally in the right, especially with something like a gambling addiction, because that directly affects her feeling of freedom now and in the future, versus something like an alcohol addiction. It doesn't necessarily, unless there's abuse or something like that involved in the picture, it doesn't necessarily affect the health of you, like your physical health. But gambling addiction does affect your financial health when you are tied to this person.
It's more easily accessible. I would say that anybody who's married to someone who's like an alcoholic or something has definitely had their emotional and physical health negatively impacted.
Sure, but I'm not, you know what I'm saying though.
I do. Yeah.
So make sure that your finances are protected. Make sure you have support from family members, emotional, maybe even if you need to find a place to stay with them, and make sure that you have spelled out specifically in a loving way so that you can look back on your behavior in the future and say that you handled it with grace and love to the best of your ability. If you truly love this person, let them know, and that here's what I would need from you in order to stay together. And if this is not, if you're not willing to meet these things, then I need to take care of myself and leave the relationship.
All right. Question 3. My wife and I are 31 and have been married for a year. She wants to start trying to have a kid, but I don't feel like I'm ready yet. I feel bad about it, but it's the truth. When I communicate this to her, she gets so sad and can't understand why. I feel like one of these days I'm just going to say okay out of guilt just to make her happy. I know I want kids, just not yet. What more can I tell her?
This is a great question. And we have a lot of experience in this exact sort of situation. The only part that is different in our situation is that when we would have conversations around kids the last like couple years, I did understand why, and I did my best not to like shame you or guilt you in any way. That's the only little piece that's different here, but I would say that we were almost in this exact situation.
Yeah, and I would tell him to, out of love and in a moment that is not charged, have a deep conversation that you clearly articulate to her is very, very important for you to express, and tell her something like this: I want children with you, but it is not that I do not feel authentic in this moment to pursue parenthood. You don't want to be with a partner who is jeopardizing their integrity just to make you happy. Masculinity is about purpose-driven living. You are attracted to this component in me. It would be out of integrity for me, although I've committed to wanting children with you, to participate in that in this moment. I hope you understand that, but that is the person that you've signed up to be with. You know, stepping out of that, if he said, I never want children ever, then that could be a huge core value difference that is worth talking about whether the relationship should be a relationship. But if it's just a matter of timing, I think it's just about having the container for the relationship to authentically express what is on each other's hearts and minds. With the, I'm open to changing my mind. I'm open to feel differently after you share your heart with me. If she says, okay, I hear you, I understand, I have a lot more empathy and compassion for you, let me now explain to you my thoughts. My biological clock is ticking. I don't feel as if I'm as lit up about anything until I start to participate in motherhood. And maybe that, if dude guy can be willing to have his heart and mind changed by what she has to share, could actually move the timeline a little bit. I think the key ingredients here are a commitment to have your heart and mind changed, as well as a commitment to authentically share what you are feeling without an attachment from your significant other, or without an expectation that your significant other is going to change their mind or bend to what you have to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will facilitate at the minimum, if this is a loving relationship, an outcome whereby each partner has a deeper, more felt experience of what the other person might be desiring.
Yeah. Totally agree with everything there. I have a couple more thoughts. One is just having empathy for your partner, because this is something that vastly, generally varies and is just different between men and women for, I think, various reasons. It's in our DNA as women to start thinking about this maybe probably sooner than a man, because a man can donate his sperm until he dies. A woman has a window. Like, that's just physiologically the way that it works. And so, of course, women are, and we're the more, nurturing generally. Like, so it makes sense that like our dial is going to be turning on probably sooner than the man's. And so just having empathy for where your partner is at both ways, knowing that they're not wrong, you're not wrong. It could be just like your DNA that's literally different. And it doesn't have to be a topic that separates you, that causes some level of disconnection. Hopefully it's something that actually causes more connection because you're understanding each other on a deeper level. So I think step one is to always come into a conversation really trying to see your partner's perspective. And I think also from the guy's perspective, something that would probably be helpful to her, which was helpful to me when we would have these conversations. Like, I've shared this before on the podcast, but like I went most of my 20s like not knowing if I did want kids. I've never had that super strong pull like some little girls do when they're 6 years old, like all I want to be is a mother. That wasn't me. And so there was a while where I was like, I don't know if I want kids. And especially when we first got back together, I was so happy and so just enthralled in our relationship, like that. It felt so fulfilling to me, and I didn't know if I wanted that to change. Then almost involuntarily, nothing in our relationship really changed. Our connection was strong. I still felt very fulfilled by our relationship. There was no void, but there was this internal dial that literally like almost overnight flipped on to where I was thinking about babies more. I was thinking about kids in general more. I was like envisioning you like holding our child, and I would get like, emotional about it. And like, where is this coming from? It felt completely involuntary. And I made a commitment from the beginning of this sort of dial turning on that I was going to be open and honest with you about what was happening inside of me, because I knew that if I stifled this, if I suppressed this, it wasn't going to be good for either one of us. And so I would just share like, here's what I'm feeling inside of me and here's where I'm at. And this is in no way a guilt trip or me trying to convince you of anything. I just need you to know where I am.
Yeah. No,
and so I think just one more thought here. If she can do that with him, and if he's not ready yet, maybe think about some things in his life that he would need in order to feel ready. Like when we would have these conversations, there was, you wanted to go on another really big trip. You wanted to go on a European or some other you wanted to travel more before we settle down. And that was something that was really important to you. And so like explaining, if you can, the reasons why, or like what you might want to experience or accomplish or feel before you get to the kid place as a man.
Yeah, no, totally. And from our experience, for me, our life basically our relationship was paused for 3 years when we were divorced, and it was reestablishing a foundation. And the older I got, the more I realized how important family was and how important the relationship of the parents are to the child itself. And the dad in me felt a responsibility to fortify our relationship and the bedrock by which we would be bringing a child into, so that it wasn't going to have to take the imprint of the things that we still had to work on. There was part of I want to experience more things, but there was also a responsibility to the inevitability of being a father, that I knew there was more time to be had in the reconciliation and the repair of our relationship. I knew some of the things that had to be worked on were not going to show up in the first 6, 12, year and a half of us getting back together. They wouldn't come online until I was like 31, 32. And they did. There were things about our divorce that were challenging, not at 29 when we got back together and we were almost in like a newlywed phase, but rather when I was like 32 and I was dealing with different changes in my life and feeling the shift from our fun relationship dynamic as newlyweds into this more partnership, And so if this guy can even articulate, if it feels authentic, that all of this really is from a place of deep love for his wife and for the future family that he wants to have, I think she can appreciate that, not unlike you've been able to understand and appreciate my perspective the last couple of years as I've requested patience. And it is not easy. I want to make you happy. And so knowing that you were diving into books about parenting and networking with birth people years before I was ready to, try to have a kid, I had to really stay in what I knew to be my Truth. Otherwise, I'd be making a decision out of a lane of integrity that I've committed to being a part of. We got married really young, and even though I knew that you were the one, and the person for me, and I wanted to get married to you, I wasn't ready to get married. I wanted to go live together for a while and have some fun and just be young. But I really felt the pressure. I've talked about this on the show before, to get married. And so I did. I proposed and we got married and all that. And I just told myself after the divorce, God damn it, I'm never doing that again, where I stifle my intuition. My intuition doesn't, I'm someone who thinks in their head a lot. And I think a lot of guys are in their head, really rational and practical. But the occasional moment when my intuition speaks up, damn it, I'm a fool if I don't listen to it, because that means the voice is very loud inside myself. And so whether any of that I'm just projecting on this individual, I think this is coming from experience, a legit challenge, but also it's like, sit in gratitude for a minute, because both of you are coming at this from a place of love for each other and from a desire to want to build a family together, even if you see it a little bit differently. Acknowledge and celebrate the fact that you are aligned in at least this cool component of wanting to conceive.
Yeah. And just, there's nothing wrong with either of you. You guys are just different, and that's okay.
Yep.
All right.
Crazy story.
Dessert time.
And we're doing it live.
I have not heard this story, is what he's hinting at here.
Okay. So this is a little bit of a story time, a little story that I found on the dark web. I don't know if it's actually the dark web. And I just knew I had to share it on the podcast. Some of you may have heard it, but who knows? When I was around 6 years old, we lived in a pretty old 2-story house, 2 stories with a walk-in attic. It was a beautiful century home with a wraparound porch and second-floor balcony that overlooked a decent-sized backyard. The house was creepy, though, especially to a 6-year-old. It would constantly creak and moan, and I was always told by my parents that it's just the house settling. My older brother liked to scare me, so he convinced me that the house was haunted and made up a story about some kid that died in the attic decades before we moved in. Real original, I know. After that, I always swore I could hear footsteps in the attic. It got so bad that I couldn't sleep one night, and as I was laying in bed, I saw something I will never forget. Staring out into the dark hallway from my bed, I see a tall, dark shape quickly move past my doorway. It wasn't just a shadow, though. It was a person, and it wasn't a person that should be there. It was way taller than my mom, and my dad was not home. It scared me so bad I immediately started to cry, but I couldn't move or call out to my mom or even wake my brother up, who was right in the top bunk sleeping above me. I never saw anything else that night, but I'm certain I heard the back door open and close shortly after seeing the shape. My dad worked third shift, so I eventually convinced myself that he had come back to grab something and then went back to work, and I finally fell asleep. The thing is, I would have heard and seen him walk in front of my room in the opposite direction first. My room was between my parents' room and the stairs on the second floor, so that if he came home and walked to his room, he had to pass by mine. I had been awake all night before and never saw him, so it couldn't have been him. The next day I told my parents, and my dad said he never came home, and they just both assured me that it was just my imagination. I continued to hear stuff all the time, but never said or saw anything else. I was terrified of being alone in the house. I insisted to my parents that there was something in the house. My dad ends up getting a job out of state, so we were moving, and my brother was having a going away party. It ended up being a slumber party, and it was about a week before we were moving. I'm still about 6 years old at this time, and he's 11, so the slumber party is full of a bunch of grade school boys doing typical 90s stuff. Pizza, video games, movies, scary stories. The only adult at the house is my mom, and my dad's at work. I'm trying to be cool in front of the older kids, and so I tell them about the stupid ghost story, and then my brother starts joking that there was a kid who died in the attic. He tells the story, and all his friends are like, all right, let's go see it. Let's go see the ghost. What have I done? I'm going to have to go up there with them now. I honestly don't ever remember being in the attic before, as if it was unfinished and used only for storage. They convinced my mom to take us up there, and she's playing along with the ghost story. She's having a ton of fun. She grabs a flashlight, and she starts leading us up to the attic door. She opens the door and starts slowly walking up the stairs without turning the lights on, again, putting on a show for the kids. As soon as she gets to the top of the stairs and turn the corner into the actual attic, I hear her say, more like scream, "Everyone downstairs and outside now." We practically trip over ourselves running down 2 flights of stairs and out the back door. My mom is running right behind us and damn near pushes us out of the way from the house and towards the neighbor's house. She's pounding on the neighbor's door until they answer, and immediately she says, "I need to use your phone to call the police." She refuses to tell any of us kids what she saw up there, but when my dad and the cops show up, we hear her tell them all. When she got to the top of the stairs and looked into the attic, she saw in the far corner what she described as a squatter's spot. A bunch of blankets piled up to make a bed, some clothes, a pair of shoes, and food wrappers everywhere. We didn't stay in the house another night. We rented a motel room and stayed there for the last week we lived in that town before moving to another state. Years, I finally got the whole story. My parents never had a clue someone was literally living in our attic.
Oh my God.
They did admit to looking back that there were some things that were strange, but most of it got blamed on other people in the house. And they knew about when, in reality, it was this guy who was living in the attic. My mom would notice food missing, but assumed us kids ate it all. My dad found cigarette butts back by the porch and was livid that my mom was smoking again.
Oh my gosh.
I was forever getting told to make sure I'd flush the toilet because someone would always leave it yellow. The blankets he was using for a bed were just new my mom had thrown out months ago. Shit like that. I don't know how long it took to find him, but it turns out the attic dweller was a local guy who was mentally ill and lived with his mom. His mom would constantly lock him out of the house, and this guy had several houses that he would break into and stay to get out of the elements. The best they were able to determine is that he would climb the columns supporting the porch roof and then the columns supporting the roof on the second floor balcony. And from the balcony roof, he would climb through an unlocked attic window. According to him, he would come down into the house when he was sure no one was there to steal food and sometimes use the bathroom. I'll never forget seeing him that night. I know it was him. It was exactly like it looks in the movies, but this time it was real. Me, 6 years old, awake in my bed at midnight, staring out the door into the dark hallway, when all of a sudden an even darker shadow zips by.
Oh my God. That is insane. So creepy. How do you live the rest of your life not just always thinking that there's someone in your house?
Moral of the story, listen to your kids.
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a moral of the story. I'm just like, I'm so creeped out. Like, I realize that it's nothing nefarious. It's just some mentally challenged person that's like trying to find shelter. And clearly he could have hurt them if he wanted to. He didn't. But that is still
fucking
so freaking crazy.
Listen to your kids, y'all.
Oh man, that poor woman too.
Right.
Oh, so creepy. Yeah. Moral of the story. Absolutely. Listen to your kids. And yeah, don't buy creepy houses. All right, you guys, that's it for the episode. If this made you laugh, if you found some value out of it, send it to someone you love, and we will talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.